All right. Oh, I'm gonna just roll into it.
All right, cool. Can you hear background noise? Hold on.
I just heard some music. It's fine though.
Okay. Sarah's playing Animal Crossing.
It's cool. It was almost like an intro. Hello, guys, gals, and non-binary pals. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm Zola, a girl in recovery, and today we are joined by KJ. She is nice enough to join us in our Recover Out Loud series, and she's got a really cool background, really cool story, and I'm really happy to have her here with us. So, hi, KJ.
Hi.
All right. So first of all, I like to get started with the question, what was your drug of choice?
Alcohol was my substance I used. Yep.
If you want to go into a little bit of why you think that became an issue, like the correlation between your history and use, of course, you can get as in detail or like glaze over it as much as possible. Totally up to you.
Absolutely. I like to try to be an open book because I believe that's how recovery gets promoted. I grew up in a not so great family life. My parents were alcoholics, and my dad decided to make me his drinking buddy when I was 12. So that's when I started drinking at 12 years old, hard liquor. And I've had a very unhealthy, abusive relationship with alcohol ever since. Landed in jail a couple times. We can go into that more later. And just got sober about almost 500 days ago. So
Woo!
it's just been, yeah. So it's just promoted. And my family was like a work hard, play hard kind of thing. It was like, if you work long hours in the service industry, you deserve to get drunk every night. So that's just the kind of relationship I developed with alcohol. And, but now I'm doing a lot better.
So what finally did it for you? What finally got you clean and sober? And how do you maintain that?
Well, it was a combination between a couple of things. I mean, I hit rock bottom a lot of times, and I got sober for years at a time, a couple of times. I went to prison in 2014, and I was sober for like a year and a half after that, but that was because I didn't have a choice. I was on parole. Then when I got off of parole and the ankle monitor and all that, I started drinking again, thinking that I could control it. Bad idea. And ended up into a lot of fights with my partner, almost destroyed my relationship, and it started affecting my health really bad. The day that made me quit drinking, I had 3 beers and my heart rate was 155 beats a minute. So I was mixing alcohol with psych meds, and that's not a good combination. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to destroy the best relationship I've ever had, and I'm going to die. If I keep this up, my heart's not going to be able to handle it. And so I just decided that day, that was October 25th of 2019, I decided I'm never going to drink again. And what have I done to stay sober? A couple of things. I've had really good support from my partner, and I've gotten back into therapy. But what kept me sober was a combination of a lot of things. I've never really been like a 12-step program kind of person, but I do like the tangible chips that they hand out, like the tangible proof of like how far I've come. So I went on Amazon and I bought myself a set of chips and I gave them to my partner. And so on all my milestones, I got a chip. And then this right here, you can't really see it really well on the camera, but it does say 1 year, 1 day at a time on it. And that was this is my year chip basically that I wear around my neck. But also part of my recovery is I'm now a peer support specialist. And so I work for an organization that has a lot to do with recovery. And I go to a ton of different kinds of meetings through a Clubhouse, through a virtual Clubhouse, like Smart Recovery. I don't know if you've ever heard of that.
I've heard of it, but I really don't know a lot about it, to be honest. Can you tell us a little bit about it? I'm not the only one.
Yeah, it's a really awesome recovery program. It is a recovery for anybody in any phase of recovery or anybody that has anything to do with substance use disorder. So it's not just for people that have substance use disorder. It's for people that are family members, also people that are just curious about, recovery, that kind of stuff. It's opening welcome to people that are abstinent. What is it called? Non-abstinent in recovery. So I do use THC microdosing to manage some of my, instead of taking some of the psychotropic medication I used to take. And they're okay with that. It's not a like all or nothing kind of thing.
Right.
So I really appreciate that, because then I can be open and honest about like everything I do, and that makes me stay accountable with my usage as medication instead of abusing a substance. Right. So it's just like all walks of life, anybody you want, just really open, and it's more like it's a topic-based group, but it's more driven by like the needs of the people in the group. So it just kind of is a support group.
Yeah, and that is one issue a lot of people have with, like the 12-step groups. The most common ones is it is supposed to be a program of complete abstinence. So then you get a lot of judgment if you do rely on like harm reduction methods or things like, what you were talking about. So I think that that's a really awesome alternative for a lot of people. I've heard of Smart Recovery, but I've never actually looked into it. So thank you for that information. I'm gonna have to do a bit of a deep dive later, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, I appreciate that. That's really cool.
No worries. Yeah, and any information that you want to post with the video, I can give you links to like groups and stuff too.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I'll post them down below because I'm a staunch believer in there is no one way to recover. What works for me may not work for you. We don't all have the same backgrounds. We don't all have the same traumas. We don't all have the same like histories or the same opportunities. So I like
100%.
Of course, I think my way is the best. No, I'm just kidding. It's the best for me though. So
it is. And that's what you have to find. I truly believe that if I tried to follow a path that I didn't 100% believe in, I wouldn't be successful in recovery. Right. When you try to force things, they very, very seldom work. Exactly. And so recognizing that there are multiple paths to recovery is really important in the recovery community, I think.
Absolutely. And I know personally, I've tried tons of different methods. I've tried a couple different programs, and I don't want to like necessarily talk down on any one program or method because just because it wasn't for me, I would hate to discourage someone else from trying it, if that makes sense. But
absolutely.
A little background between KJ and I is we met in college. We took a lot of classes together, criminology and sociology. So we got to know each other pretty well. That's that.
That's that. I think honestly, just to like make another note on that, I think school is part of what saved my life, honestly. Yeah, I found my passion, which is sociology and criminology. I love them. And that was my way in to help people, and I haven't looked back since.
Absolutely same. I fell in love with it. I started with psychology because I'm like, oh, I'm going to go be an addiction counselor, which I think a lot of people fresh in recovery, that's what they're going to do. They're going to save everybody. And there's nothing wrong with that. Absolutely. It's great to help people. And if that's your passion, I say do it. But then I took a couple sociology classes and I fell in love. And then when you start falling in love with sociology, you can't help but kind of veer into criminology. And it's been really hard for me personally, graduating during a pandemic and moving cross country in a pandemic, trying to find a position that I'm able to utilize my degree. But what it'll happen or not, or I can just keep using my tools to YouTube to help out the tubes.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that like when it's the right time, it'll come up for you. I mean, I got a little bit lucky with my path. So a lot of hard work and a little bit of luck.
Right. I was going to say, it wasn't just luck. Like you have worked your ass off. And I've seen that firsthand. Like you didn't just go to college and be all willy-nilly. You did the honors programs. You did the internships. Like you worked your ass off. And I remember you saying to me too, you're like, well, I'm a felon. I have to work twice as hard as everybody else because of my past. And that's what I'm going to have to do if I want to be successful. And I don't personally think that that's fair, but I get it.
Yeah, it's just it's the reality of things right now, but I'm trying to change that. And there's a lot of people trying to change that. And the paradigm is definitely shifting towards, peer support specialists and towards recognizing recovery community organizations and recognizing that reentry programs are not enough, that we need to support people when they're actually still incarcerated better. So I'm working to change that so other people don't have to work twice as hard just because I made a mistake in the past.
I firmly agree. And I would love to post a link to the article you had published in the newspaper, if that's okay. Would you like to talk about that just a little bit?
Sure. I wrote an op-ed for the Pueblo Chieftain here in Pueblo, Colorado, and it was about just trying to talk to the community about recognizing that people make mistakes and that more of your neighbors have records than you think they do, because it's very easy to get a criminal record. Everybody's broken the law at some point, but It was an op-ed about legislation that I'm hoping to get passed maybe next year. And it talked about the recidivism rate that's really, really high. It's around 67% in Colorado right now. It fluctuates much higher than that oftentimes. And about how just treating people like human beings is a big step towards making it so that they don't go back to prison or jail, and making it so that they feel like a productive member of society like they are. If you're trying hard and you're staying out of trouble, you deserve to have anything everybody else has. You shouldn't be a second class citizen. And so that was basically the op-ed, kind of in a synopsis. And I definitely will give you a link to that so people can read it.
Yeah, I think it's a worthwhile read. I know I was sharing it all over the place when it first came out. I was like, that's my friend. So yeah, I was really thought that was awesome. Of course, there's the people that don't want help, and that's fine. They don't have to have it. But I do believe if people actually want to change, then we should have tools, and they should have the opportunity to do so.
100%. Yeah.
So you've mentioned that you've had your bouts, you've had like ins and outs with recovery. What have you tried in the past that didn't work?
I think that if you want to get to the root of why things didn't work, my heart was just never really in it. I always had this idea, and I think a lot of people that have substance use disorder or abuse substances have the same idea, that you can somehow control the substance that has controlled you for so long. And you want to have that control, right? Like, you want that desperately. Nobody doesn't want that, even if they don't want help at the time. Like, everybody has that feeling, like, I wish I could just change this. And I think that what made me not successful before was like not surrounding myself with people that are in recovery. So you have to, like, you don't have to do AA, you don't have to do NA, you don't have to do smart recovery, but you do have to like have people in your life that are either willing to be sober to help you out, or are sober, or are in the recovery community. And I always like shunned groups because I had only had bad experiences. Like, AA and NA are not bad things, but I had only had bad experiences because I had been forced to go to AA. And then I didn't know that there were like a multitude of different like not every AA meeting is the same. So the only ones I got exposed to were like all male run in the basement of a church. And I was getting preached at that my addiction was in the parking lot doing push-ups, and that it was just like that kind of thing, and it was just like an all or nothing kind of attitude. And so education really helped me, not my college education, but like actually wanting to get sober, like truly in my heart wanting to be sober is how I actually got there. But I tried different recovery meetings. I tried no recovery support. That didn't work for me. I don't think it works for most people. I tried cutting down on alcohol. That definitely didn't work for me. I went to jail and got out. That didn't work for me. So I think it's just like the question of what is your rock bottom? And it doesn't have to look like prison, and it doesn't have to look like near-death experience. It's not the same for everybody. So like, when does it become a point to where you realize that you have more to lose than to gain from your substance use? And when is the point when it clicks? And that's different for everybody. Some get sober way earlier on. I'm 36 and I just got sober, like 493 days ago or something like that. So I think it's just trying to try different things and be willing to put yourself out there in different kinds of meetings or in different kinds of recovery atmospheres to find what actually works for you instead of just giving up. And I think there's also a big thing about recognizing that there's a difference between a lapse and a relapse. We don't even like to use the word in peer support relapse. We usually use reoccurrence, just because we're trying to use more person first language. So I think it was also knowing that if I drank a beer, that doesn't mean I have to like, oh, I messed up, I drank a beer. It's all or nothing. So now I might as well just get drunk, recognizing that too. And I didn't have any slip ups like that, but if I ever do in the future, it's knowing that there's a difference between a lapse and a relapse. So knowing that if I mess up and I drink a beer, that doesn't mean that I have to go all out and just go back to where I was and drinking like crazy and just putting alcohol above everything and spending all my money on it and stuff like that.
Yeah. Interestingly, I know a guy who he tasted his friend's drink, just tasted it. And his sponsor was like, that's it. That's a relapse. Your time is gone. Your 6 years are gone. And he took that to heart and he was like, well, screw it. What's the point? And then he went on a 3-year bender after that. And not saying that that's what you get from 12-step programs, but sometimes that is what happens. And personally, do I see that as a relapse? Absolutely not. But the fact of the matter is, as somebody in that position of authority, in that position of power, told that person that, and then they took it to heart, and that does happen. So I completely see where you're coming from, and I can see how that would be beneficial. It's really hard to find that line, though, in my opinion, of what is okay and then what is like enabling and coddling. Like if it's a lapse every single day, are we going to call a duck, or if it's just like, hey, you messed up, it's okay, go ahead, like just keep going. It's a really fine line, I believe.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that like educating more people on the fact that if you do have a small mess up, and I'm not saying like drinking every day, that's definitely you're back in your use,
Right.
but if you mess up and you go on vacation and you have a drink or something like that, and it doesn't have to mean the end of your recovery. And I think that we need to spread that awareness more, and not, it's not, recovery is not all or nothing. You doesn't mean that you can occasionally have a drink and still be in recovery. If you have a alcohol abuse problem, that's not the case. You shouldn't be doing that. But it just means like, remember that you have a support community, like, and build that for yourself, because then you can rely on the knowledge that you have where you're like, all right, I made a mistake, but this doesn't mean that I threw everything away.
I like it. I do. Okay, we've gone through a whole lot of it. I guess all that I've got left as far as my questions go is there anything that you personally would like to say to somebody who's still struggling or is new to recovery?
There's actually a couple of things I wanted to say in this interview that I didn't say yet, and
Let's do it.
so what I would say to somebody that's new in recovery is not all support groups are the same, but you have to have some sort of like recovery community, some sort of support, somebody to help hold you accountable, somebody to help educate you on how to make different decisions than you made in the past. It doesn't matter what that looks like. What matters is that it works for you. And also, when you're first getting into recovery, don't be so hard on yourself about the past, because we can't change the past. We have to take accountability for our pasts. Absolutely, 100%. We have to do that. We can't just blame things on our use, but we can look at the fact that we made mistakes in the past and learn how to not make those mistakes in the future and create a better future. So just because, like I posted something on my Facebook the other day that said something along the lines of, just because you used to do something or advocate for something that was bad doesn't mean that you can't advocate against it in the future. So if you grew up like I did in a really racist town, full of like a lot of racist people, and you had really terrible preconceived notions about people of color, that doesn't mean that you can't learn later, like I have, and change, and then advocate for people of color, and and advocate for people that don't have a voice. I know I kind of got off on a little bit of a tangent there.
No,
but
it's all great stuff. Keep going.
Yeah. And the other thing I wanted to say, I wanted to make sure that I brought this up, is the op-ed. I didn't really explain the legislation that's behind it. There's the legislation is to try to get it passed so that if you have a criminal record and it's nonviolent and it's not a sex offender charge or something, really serious like that, unless your crime directly related to the field you were trying to get into, the public would not have access to those records. So unless it was a safety concern of some sort, it would not be a barrier towards getting jobs, which is like the number one thing that I think makes people go back to prison. If you can't figure out how to make money legitimately, you're going to figure out how to make money some way. And if you can't figure out how to get your stuff legitimately, you're going to figure out how to get it some way. And the other thing I wanted to say is, I'm really, really happy to be in the position that I am today as a peer recovery support specialist, because there's a lot of bills being passed to make it so we can like bill Medicaid and actually make this like a legitimate thing. And the number one thing that I want people to know is that in prison, you have to advocate for yourself. In jail, you have to advocate for yourself. And if nobody's ever taught you to do that, there should be somebody there to do that for you. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to change the paradigm of recovery. We're trying to change the paradigm of how people are treated when they're incarcerated, and make it so that you have a support system throughout your incarceration, not just when you get out, we're going to throw all this regurgitate all this information at you and just, you know, I like to say, this is a terrible way to say it, but like they just vomit information at you. They tell you, you got to do this and this and this and this on this day and this day and this day and this day. And you got to turn this in and do this thing and do that thing. And then they don't offer you time to take a breath and have a cup of coffee or whatever you want to, you know, have, and just be a human. And I think we need to humanize recovery. I think we need to humanize mistakes. And I think that we just need to totally shift the paradigm completely. And I'm happy to be part of that. And anybody that wants to help or anybody that wants information about it, I'm happy to give out my contact information. I'm 100% an open book, and I think that's also a part of recovery. If we keep it in secrecy all the time, it's never going to work. If people aren't honest about the fact that they're in recovery and we don't make recovery a normal thing, then people are just going to continue to think that it's a shameful secret they should have. And that should never be the case, because it's really hard to get help if you feel like you should be ashamed of what you're doing all the time.
Absolutely. And with there being such high numbers of addiction and also recidivism rates for prison, things like that, it's like obviously what we're doing and what we have been doing is not working, and it's absolutely time to try something different. It's time to stop living in shame. It's time to come out of the shadows, and it's time to make changes. So I really appreciate you coming on here, and because that's what this YouTube channel is about. It's about self-help, it's about betterment, it's about the recovery community, and just trying to lift each other up and help each other. So yes, I do really appreciate that.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate you having me on. And, you know, there's the founder of the Harm Reduction Action Center in Denver, which is the biggest harm reduction center in the United States. Her name's Lisa Rayville. You might have heard of her before. She did a TED Talk where she talks about if we could jail and punish our way out of the drug problem, we would have done that by now.
Oh, yeah.
We would have had it accomplished by now. So it's definitely time to make a change. And I'm happy to be here to talk, to hopefully be a part of that and just show people that there are different faces to recovery. There are different ways. There's not one way. The best way, I think, as a harm reductionist to go about recovery is I'm going to meet you where you are, and ask you what you need. What resources do you need to get yourself into recovery and to stay in recovery? But it also means I don't want to have a picnic with you. I want to meet you where you are, but we're going to go on a journey and we're going to travel forward. And so I think it's a fine line that people walk. Definitely. You can't just meet somebody where they are continually, because that becomes like accidental rewarding using behavior or enabling, if you want to say that, you know.
Yeah, like here, let me come to where you are and then just kind of wallow with you in it. And that's not helpful, but I feel you. I really do. Yeah. Any last words, anything you can think of that you would like to add? I really actually like where this has gone.
No, I don't think there's really anything else I wanted to say. You know, I'll give you some links if you want to throw them in the video. I don't know if you remember the Clubhouse that I told you about, the Embark PCA through Colorado does. They have 70 different meetings a week. And so you can like try them out. And the horrible thing about COVID is that COVID's here. The cool thing about COVID is they're all virtual. So you don't even have to have your camera on when you're in a meeting if you don't feel comfortable. And you don't even have to stay if you don't want to, if you don't like it. And so, you know, definitely want to share as much information as I can to help as many people as possible.
Yeah, definitely after this, send me the link and I'll make sure it pops up at the bottom here when we start talking about it. I'll also post it down in the description.
I have an Instagram that I have that's pretty public, and I post a lot of recovery stuff and dog pictures. So if you like dog pictures, you can follow me on Instagram, but I'll give you that information. I don't mind giving that out at all.
Okay. Do you know your handle?
I don't know. Oh, yes, I do. I think it's, you're going to have to put it on the screen because it's actually her Lil Asparagus.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And that's like an inside joke between me and my wife. So if you want to know more, follow me, I guess.
All right. Well, once again, thank you so much for doing this. I'm going to go ahead and cut it off. I think we like packed so much into just kind of a short amount of time. And I love it because then people don't lose focus and get bored with it and stuff. So I think it's perfect. But I'm going to go ahead and just do my little sign off and tell everybody thank you so much for joining us. If you haven't done so already, please remember to hit the like button for the YouTube algorithms. So that way our message can reach the most amount of people and get shown to the most people. And if you haven't done so already, go ahead and hit that subscribe add button as well. That being said, I will be posting links to connect you with KJ and enable you to read her proposal for legislation in the Pueblo Chieftain and connect you to some in the rooms meetings. What's that called again?
Oh, it's Embark PCA. It's a virtual clubhouse.
A virtual clubhouse. So I'll go ahead and post that down below as well. Thank you so much for joining us, everybody. Thank you so much, KJ.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.